Great. Okay. Well, Becky, if you want to start by just introducing yourself, tell us a little bit where are you calling from and what is your background? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah,
Perfect.
you would think I'd figure this out by now. Well, thanks, Catherine, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to talk to you all about getting ready for traveling. Yes, I'm Becky Rupp. My business is Trailblazer Wellness. I am based in Colorado. This is actually my backyard. I'm really, really fortunate to, not right this minute, but it is a picture of my what I see from my window. And I'm really fortunate to live in central Colorado now in the mountains. I was in Denver for about 17 years before I moved out here. So, hey, Sandra, wherever you are in the Denver area. But I grew up in Michigan and then spent some time on let's see, in the Mid-Atlantic in the Washington, D.C. area before making my way out to Colorado. And I just love it here. So I created my business 5 years ago, just before the pandemic. Great timing to set up a business of helping people get physically and mentally prepared for traveling. But it did give me a chance to, do some more research and work through some things when things were a little bit upside down with the pandemic. So it's really been growing in leaps and bounds over the last 3 or 4 years. Um, have done a fair amount of traveling myself. I am a certified personal trainer. I've been certified since 2012. I then layered in health coaching certification so that I could help people with behavior change and meeting goals and, just working through all the different aspects of health and wellness. And then decided to put that all into place in my business in working with people who want to go travel and want to just be sure that they're physically ready to make the most of their trips. So whether that's I've worked with people who are doing walking trips, trips in Morocco, sightseeing trips in Morocco, all the way up to climbing Kilimanjaro. So I really work with a broad range of people on whatever is you know on their mind, whatever goals they have, and help them starting from wherever they're at right now to, take them all the way through to get ready to have an amazing trip.
Awesome. Well, I would love to know when you think about Trailblazer Wellness specifically and working with women
Mhm.
in particular, what are some of the most common reasons that women come to work with you, and how do you approach helping a woman who is going to take a big trip, maybe for
Yeah.
the first time in her life? What are the key things that you work with her on?
Yeah, a lot of my clients are in the midlife stage, I would say. Worked with people as young as 25, but most people are and as old as 75, I think, 73, 74. But most people women fall within like 45 to 65 or so. And a lot of them are kind of like re-entering, I would say, the travel space after perhaps a break. That could be a career, raising kids, having family responsibilities. And now they're at a point in their life where they are excited to, go out and explore and do something on their own. And they just want to get back to or invest some time in their physical, well-being and mental as well. So that can, just again look like coming back maybe from an illness or injury as well. So after even now, I still get people who say, I kind of fell off the wagon during the pandemic and I'm just getting back into things. So I'm just open to wherever you are and whatever situation you're coming from and taking a look at that and providing the support to again get you ready to do whatever it um, is you know
Yeah. What about I guess I know we have Amy and Jacqueline on here who are going on our Camino walking
Mm.
tour and then to see Spain and Portugal. And so um for someone who is, say, doing a more active adventure, right? A walking tour in Europe or Morocco or someplace where they're going to have to be on their feet
Mhm.
day in and day out. What are
Mhm.
some of the biggest recommendations you have for how they prepare for travel?
Sure, absolutely. The biggest thing I work with people on is increasing their level of activity just gradually and in a very like realistic and doable way. So sometimes you can get super excited, be like, okay, I'm gonna like go walk 5 miles every day. But if you've been walking, a mile or two every day or every other day, that can be a little bit of overload for the body. So it can look like just gradually adding activity, gradually adding mileage, 10 to 20% each week, and working your way up to that goal. So it's really a process of paying attention to how your body reacts as well and adapting along the way and taking into account like what else is going on in your life and being realistic. So I really encourage people, sometimes it also like the flip side of going overboard can be sometimes people are like a little intimidated by, oh my gosh, I'm working with a client right now who's doing the Camino in April, and she's like, I don't know how I'm going to get to doing like 12 miles a day. And we're just taking it literally like one step at a time, 1 week at a time. Part of the coaching background that I have and experience I have is just working through those challenges, those kind of mental challenges of, overcoming the overwhelm and, figuring out how to make it doable and sustainable and keeping things on a good track so that you can reach your goals.
I think that's a big thing, right? Of it when you have a big goal or a big trip coming up, it's how do you break that into something that you don't do so much in your first 3 weeks that you burn yourself out and then,
Right.
you get overwhelmed and you're like, well, I'll never do it. So, um,
Yeah.
I think that sustainability piece is huge. And I think that's, at least for me personally, whenever I think about health and wellness stuff, like the accountability also of having a coach and having somebody who I know is going to call me on a certain day and say, Catherine, did you do your steps today or something is helpful in keeping me motivated. When you think about preparing again for a trip, how long in advance do you recommend people start? If they, again, doing we're not talking about hiking Kilimanjaro,
Right.
more of a big walking tour somewhere in Europe or an active trip that has lots of time on your feet, but that's not intensive hiking or trekking.
Sure.
Um, when should they start preparing? How many months or weeks in advance do you recommend?
Yeah, it really depends on how big that gap is between what you're doing now and what the trip looks like. But I usually work with people in about the 3 month range. And I usually recommend that people start focusing on maybe ramping up or adapting their activity level about 3 months in advance. If you're already like, fairly active, you walk and like again, if this is more of a walking trip, you walk multiple times a week. Maybe you do a longer walk on the weekends. Um, that's fantastic. And then 3 months before, just looking at, oh, okay, how long are we actually going to be, walking every day? How many days in a row? And then start adding to that activity. And as you get closer, if you are going to have a couple of pretty like long days back to back, you might try doing a couple of back to back longer days on your feet over a weekend, or if you have flexibility during the week, just doing that, to kind of simulate the environment that you're going to be experiencing and getting your body acclimated to that and seeing how you recover, seeing how you feel the next day, seeing if your footwear is working well for you, and the socks, and just kind of the
Yep.
combination of things that can influence how you experience a trip. Another thing that I see a lot with European trips in particular. In fact, I was just talking to a client about this the other day, is that um, many European destinations have more stairs than we're used to dealing with in the
Yes.
United States. Lack of elevators, like three stories up as your hotel room and you have to drag your luggage up there.
Yep.
So just kind of practicing with those things. And when I work with people, I always recommend and include strength training plans and programs, because as we age, we do tend to lose muscle mass, and that just impacts kind of a whole suite of things. Related to how well we might enjoy and be able to tolerate, those multiple days in your feet and those long days. So it's, this is not like bodybuilding, super intense, go to the gym for hours on end. Not at all. It's like 25 to 30 minutes of some foundational moves, using light weights or a backpack or something that you already have, so that again, your muscles are just like stronger and more resilient. It can help you reduce your risk of injury. It can help you feel stronger, feel better, as you're going through that trip and in your everyday life.
Awesome. Yes, I think that's a big thing we always talk to women about is before, the best parts of Europe, right, are the old cities, they're cobblestones, they're
Yeah.
uneven paths. We try to personally stay in boutique hotels that may not always have elevators or there are just uneven floors and things like that. And so even if our trips are not the most physically active, there is a component of making sure that expectations are set about mobility and accessibility needs for trips because uh,
Sure.
Europe often is the parts that you envision staying in, right? The really boutique, incredible accommodations in the old parts of the cities. Those are really old buildings. And so
Mhm.
there are a lot of stairs and a lot of uneven surfaces involved. So I
Yep.
appreciate the call out for strength training and making sure we always tell people like take your backpack, take your suitcase around the house with you up and down the stairs. Make sure if you can't carry it up and down the stairs at your house, like take stuff out because you're not going to want to be carrying that around when we're actually on the ground in Europe or whatever country we're visiting.
Yeah, I also include balance training in my programs. Again, it helps you like build up those little muscles that can be supportive, and also those uneven surfaces, the challenging, kind of situations that you might be in. It just gives you more confidence and more ability to, catch yourself if you get a little off balance, and be able to, um, yeah, really feel more confident when you're, climbing up those stairs, or, you know, poking around in those ruins or whatever, like
Yeah.
cool things you're exploring on your trip.
One question I know we've gotten in the chat and that a lot of people always ask us about is what footwear do you recommend? And I know that it's obviously very personal, but
It is.
um,
Yeah.
when you think about the right maybe type of shoe for someone who is going to be on their feet a lot, what are the things that
Mhm.
you recommend paying attention to? And what are also places you might go to shop for those if there are specific types of stores that have good variety?
Yeah, yeah, I see that Jean put in her Hokas. That is a super popular
Popular.
option, and I have those myself. I have a lot of different kinds of walking shoes, but I do suggest, trying on a lot of different options. Running shoes, trail running shoes. I really like trail running shoes specifically because they tend to have more grip, and a little bit chunkier soles, or lightweight hiking shoes. They just have that, the type of rubber and the type of pattern that they have on the bottom, is usually really supportive, and also really, kind of more grippy. So it's also designed for more lateral movement as well. So it tends to, support, again, kind of moving around in different directions. So the hiking shoes or trail running shoes or running shoes. But, I also have just a pair of Skechers that I love. So, there's such a great variety. It's so amazing that we have so much variety these days. But I do recommend going to, yeah, either like a running shoe store or an outdoor store like REI, or on the East Coast, Eastern Mountain Sports, or whatever, and working with somebody who is going to take the time to help you try out a lot of different kinds of shoes. And walking around in the store, it can be helpful if they have a good return policy, and allow you to take them home and try them a little bit longer. Um, I recommend going at the end of the day when your feet are already like swollen, or, especially if you have a day that you're on your feet more than usual. That can be a good time to go try on shoes so you can see like what they really feel like at the end of the day. Even if you haven't been walking in
Yeah.
those shoes all day, like your feet are still kind of, tired and expanded and all that kind of stuff. And also preferably not on the weekends. It's nice to go again later in the day on a weekday, because chances are better that the staff person's going to have a little more time to spend with you rather than like running around on a crazy weekend day.
Yeah.
So those are some of my tips for looking for footwear. And also the socks, like the combination, people are always like, oh, these shoes give me blisters. Well, it's often the combination of shoes and socks. So I definitely recommend also trying like the socks that you think you might want to wear, something that does wick sweat. Cotton socks can be problematic because they get damp and wet, and then they rub, and then there's your blister. So merino wools, there's some synthetic blends that are really good with kind of keeping that moisture away from your feet, and like, rather than just like hanging out there and causing problems.
Yeah. Those are all great pieces of advice. I think I had never thought about how trying shoes on at the end of the day, right when your feet are tired, like if you put a pair of shoes on at that point and they feel good, that's probably a really good sign.
Yeah.
Um, Everything feels good at 10 a.m., right? You haven't been doing that much. So I love that tip. What about other accessories? Walking poles are things that we get asked about. Backpacks. Are there anything sort of as you think about an active trip, other accessories that you recommend people have for their travels?
Yeah, trekking poles, walking poles are a really personal thing. I love them. I've used trekking poles since my mid 20s when I kind of jacked up one of my knees on a big hike. But I use them a lot. And I used them on the Camino when I did the Portuguese Camino in 2022. Yeah, used them a lot. And they are super helpful for balance. They also can help your energy level because you're kind of spreading your effort through your body instead of just on your legs. If you have any knee problems, they can be a huge help. Um, you don't have to spend a ton of money on them. One of my clients who's exploring Machu Picchu with a group uh, got a pair for like less than $50, and she loved them, which is great. I have some nicer, well, I don't know if they're nicer. I shouldn't say it that way. I have some Leckies that I've had for since that first, my very first pair of trekking poles. I still use them 25, 26, 27 years later. Um, so yeah, it's, a high quality pair can last you a really, really long time. You do need to be careful about checking them though, because TSA can be a little fussy about it here in the US.
Okay.
There are some people say, oh, I've gotten through no problem, and others have had trekking poles confiscated. So if you're a person who prefers to check or to always carry on bags and not check, then that could be a consideration depending on your itinerary. But I love trekking poles. Backpacks, again, very personal decision. I like packs with a little bit more structure. Like some people just use like the little drawstring, quick packs, like super, super lightweight. If you just have a few items, that can be perfectly fine. I tend to carry a little bit more just because I always like to have a first aid kit with me and this and that. And I carry a fair amount of things just in case of everything and a lot of water. So I like a bag with a little more structure. So some nice padding on the shoulder straps. I like to have a waist strap, especially one with some pockets, so I can have my like lip balm and a few Kleenex handy. But again, it's a lot of personal preference and trying things on. Again, if you go to a place like REI where they have a pretty good return policy, you can take it home, wear it around the house, see how it feels. Um, and then if it doesn't work for you, you can exchange it or try something else. But you can also find some really like inexpensive options on Amazon, and some people that's just fine for them too.
Awesome. One more shoe related question is
Sure.
how long do you need to wear the shoes to break them in general? Like, I
Mm.
assume you don't want to wear them out, but you also need to
Yeah.
turn them around enough that, they're broken in and comfortable. So, how long does
Yeah.
that typically take?
That's again pretty personal. I find that most of like the trail runners and the running shoes, walking shoes are pretty comfortable right out of the box and don't require much break-in time at all. If it's something that's a little stiffer or heavier, like a hiking shoe or boot, then a few weeks, a month. I usually recommend that people start trying the shoes that they think they want to wear on the trip again about 2 to 3 months out. So if you do find that you're like, okay, these are just not working for me, you still have a little time to get another pair and spend a few weeks in them to see if they're going to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of like thinking ahead and getting something and trying it for, a couple of weeks is usually enough to know whether or not it's like going to be a good option or not. But yeah, after, depending on it's really more how many miles you put them on them before they are done. And you need to like move on and our running shoe store takes them back for recycling. And I think they like grind them up and put them in um, like playground like
Yeah.
stuff or whatever. So I always like to do that because I go through a lot of running and walking shoes. Um, but after talk to the people at the store about like how many miles to expect to be able to put on them before they get worn. But you can also look at the wear pattern on the bottom of the shoe, and if you're seeing that, it's especially if you have feet that you pronate or supinate or whatever, if you know those terms. If your foot rolls one way or the other when you're walking, it'll wear more on one side versus the other. And sometimes when it gets to be like wearing down quite a bit, then you kind of know you're like, oh yeah, it's time to get some new shoes.
Yeah. That is all super helpful. One question that someone had was exercises besides walking. So if there was one thing that you could recommend people do on a daily or weekly basis as an exercise, what would that be?
Oh wow, that's a really interesting question. Um, I'm I would say planks. No one's gonna love, very few people are gonna love me for that answer, but you can do all kinds of modifications. You don't have to like get down on the floor. You can do them against the wall even, but it's a really good full body exercise. Your core, when you think about it, your core is what kind of holds you up and keeps you going. So while your legs need to be strong, your core, having a stronger core and even upper body just, makes everything a little bit easier. So I do, like I said, I include these like workouts. They include some planks, they include, some lifting things over your head as if you were going to put something in a overhead bin, some curls and things like that. So I would say to supplement walking, yeah, just some strength training, at least a few strength training things, especially focused on the core, to really help you feel and be more balanced and resilient and just better able to manage the activities of the trip.
Awesome. Alice has a question about preparing for hills. So she said
Ah,
she doesn't live in a place with many inclines, but are stairs a
mhm.
good alternative for preparing for hills?
Absolutely. Yep, they definitely are. That's part of the plans too. When people have a trip that includes some hills, and especially if they live in the flatlands. I have a client who right now who lives in Florida and she is climbing Kilimanjaro. So she's got a lot of stairs in her future. But yeah, you don't even have to be doing anything that extreme. Just yeah, using some stairs to simulate the hills or even finding a small hill and just doing repeats on a small hill can be helpful as well. I used to live in North Carolina on the beach, like, flat as a pancake, except we did have sand dunes. And so I like would go walk on the sand dunes. So it doesn't have to be some big, massive hill, just something to give your legs a chance to go up and down.
Mhm.
Because the downhill can be challenging for people as well. So I do advocate for real stairs and or real hills. Treadmills and stairmasters are fine in a pinch, but unfortunately, they don't really prepare you for the downhill, and it does
Mhm.
use your muscles in a different way. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, please keep putting questions in the chat and we will keep asking them. Um, my final question is really any last piece of it as pieces of advice or things that you found really helpful for maybe someone who's a little bit intimidated by taking an active adventure. They want to go do it, but they're like, am I really capable of this? What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I would encourage them to go for it. We have so many options and opportunities these days, and I know that, that your group takes people on to some really amazing places in the world. And, having the excitement and the goal of a trip can often help people be inspired to increase their activity level to be able to do that. And then it's just a matter of taking things slowly, like I said, taking it bit by bit. You can, just add things in really small increments. I have one client right now who's, she's adding like 5 minutes onto each treadmill session. That seems doable for her. She's adding one more trip up and down the stairs each week, and or every few days. It's really should be pretty doable for most people. And it's just a matter of like breaking it down into those really little pieces and being consistent. So figuring out a way to be consistent, add things really gradually, and the next thing you know, you'll be ready to go.
Awesome. Well, that is super, super helpful. I want to give anybody else the chance if you want to jump off mute and ask Becky a question or us a question. I know we have a couple of folks who are coming up on trips with us pretty soon. So if you have questions about how to prepare for your specific trips, feel free to ask them and Becky can give you some advice. The other thing I will say for those of you who are new on these Women Travel Abroad calls, I like to give a little bit of context. So we're here every Saturday. We have different speakers like Becky join us, or sometimes it's just a community call where we get together and discuss a travel question of the week. Our goal is really to be a resource for women who are interested in traveling solo or in small groups about learning about opportunities, where to travel, how to prepare for travel, etc. We do offer small group trips. We have several that are more active coming up, one that's to Spain and Portugal to walk El Camino. We have some options in Italy, Croatia, etc., that are also very active walking tours in Europe. We have this year we have trips to 6 of the 7 continents, so we're very excited to be headed across the world. And if you are a woman looking for a group to travel with, we are always happy to
Hmm.
have you join us. So I'm happy to leave this open for any questions. Becky and I will
Hmm.
hang back, and if you have questions, comments, feel free to ask away.
Can
Um,
we can we ask about specific trips?
yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I'm going with you to Morocco in August, so you know it's
Yeah.
going to be hot. Um, I work out a lot, but I'm not really a walker, so I do a lot in the gym. Um, Becky, is there any particular thing maybe I should do to prepare for the heat? Or Catherine, you lived in Morocco, so you might be good with that. Is the heat really oppressive, or
It's I what I will say is it's a dry heat, so it's not as oppressive as Florida in the summers can be, or Georgia in the summers, right? It should
right?
feel better than that. But Becky, if you have ideas of how to train when you're going to be traveling somewhere hot.
Yeah, I mean, you might have a hot yoga place in your
I
your
live in
town.
Augusta, so it's pretty hot. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Then
yeah,
yeah, you probably are ready for the heat. Just spending the time outside. You don't have
yeah,
to go crazy
yeah.
out
Right.
there, but just yeah, doing some more walks in the
Walks.
heat.
Yeah,
Yeah, just to, find a nice route and
yeah.
explore. Some people tell me they're like, "Oh, I found all these great places I had never even like I knew they existed, but I've never really been there you know, in their area." So take this as an opportunity to explore
The
locally.
thing
Yeah.
I will add just for hot climate, I feel like it can make, at least for me personally, it makes a big difference to have really breathable clothes. And so I think investing in some pieces of clothing that are lightweight and breathable, but also keep you covered from the sun and things like that has always been really important for me. So like long sleeve, um, athletic type material tops that are gonna keep me covered from
Mm.
the sun, but also keep me comfortable in the heat. I'm not gonna feel like I'm suffocating. So that makes a difference. And I will say I what was not a I thought it was a little funny. But then I tried it for the first time, which is one of those portable fans that you can wear around your neck. You
Never
look a
seen
little
that.
goofy, but they are so nice when it is really, really hot. I've never used one in Morocco, but I've taken some other trips to really humid destinations and I kind of laughed at the people using them. And then I borrowed it once and I was like, oh, I understand. This is great. So
Yeah.
you could consider purchasing one of the little, it sits around your neck and it's a little fan that breathes some cool air on you. So if you're concerned about overheating, that could be a
No.
good investment.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Thank you.
there's certain cloths too that are made of material that when they're wet they get cooler, and those can be really nice to have around your neck, or your wrists, basically your pulse points. That's where you're gonna like get the relief. So like wrapping something cool around your wrist, wrapping something cool around your neck,
Great.
um, can be really
How does it get cooler?
nice.
Um, I'm also going to start a poll. So if you want a copy of this recording or just in general want to follow up with us, I'm going to launch a poll where you can put your name and email in, and we will send this to you as a follow-up. So that way, in case you do think of anything later on and you want to stay in touch with us, we'll send you an email after this call with more information. But again, we're here for a few more minutes. So if people have questions, feel free to ask away. Um, One other question I did see, Becky, was for so there's nothing is a silly question. For a beginner traveler, what destinations do you recommend maybe starting with? Is there a place that
Mm.
you might go on a first more active adventure?
I'm a big advocate of staying close to home for the first time and taking it in kind of smaller bites. So, depending on where you are, just going someplace within maybe an hour or two for a weekend trip, where, if you want to get some experience in with flights, a shorter flight. I don't know. Beginner traveler has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. Um, but yeah, staying closer to home can just help build your confidence and your resilience, and um, yeah, it'd be a nice option. Then I would say, and Catherine, you can certainly, give your thoughts as well. But and next step, it would be in a destination if you're looking at international destinations where English is where the native language is your primary language, whether that's
Yeah.
English, Spanish, whatever. I don't want to assume everybody's first language is English, but someplace where the signage is going to be like you can read it, you can understand what people are saying, things like that. Um, those are kind of the first couple of steps, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's also where small groups, traveling with small groups, or even finding a local hiking group or walking group near where you live could be a great first
Mhm.
step to, maybe you're like, I don't even know if I like walking. Um, go find a walking group or a hiking group near you, join some of their day experiences. That way you'll have more experienced people to show you where to go, what to do. And you can decide whether or not like a more active walking or hiking trip is even something you want to invest in. And if it is, and you've done that locally, then you know, okay, I probably am good to go for a week to yeah, somewhere in maybe the UK or Ireland where it's English speaking. Australia, New Zealand are long flights, but they are English speaking countries. And they have a lot of beautiful hiking and walking destinations. So I think that's great. I think the other thing is just finding people to travel with. It, you know, we, at least the reason we exist as Women Travel Abroad is because we find that a lot of women don't want to travel in a big bus group, but they're solo. They don't want to travel entirely by themselves. And so we are able to provide that niche for really small group travel for women who are coming by themselves. And so I'd say finding a group of other people who share your interests, who you can feel comfortable traveling with, helps take away that intimidation factor, whether it's an active adventure or just going someplace you've never been before. Um, One other question about hiking boots specifically. Do you have a recommendation of below ankle or above ankle hiking boot heights?
Yeah. Um, it depends. My favorite answer, but depends on how like comfortable you feel. I usually on most hikes use a below ankle hiking shoe. Um, but I do use above ankle for terrain that's relatively tricky and or when I'm carrying more weight on my back just for the additional support. So those are some of the guidelines that I use, but I know people who will carry a full backpack with just wearing trail runners. So it's very personal. Um, but one thing to keep in mind with hiking and walking for long distances is that your feet are the things that you're going to pick up and move with each step, obviously. But what you may not be as quite as obvious is that the weight of the shoe that you're wearing is going to impact how tired you're going to get. So, that's what you're picking up and moving each time. So, using a heavier, like above ankle height, full on hiking boot for walking the Camino, if you're just carrying a day pack, like some people might decide they want to do that. Um, However, wearing a lighter shoe will just make that less taxing. So if you can tolerate it, if it's something that is going to cause you to be concerned, then try walking with as light a shoe as you can because that's where a lot of your energy goes.
That's really good advice.
Cross that
And that's
mic.
actually related to one other question is for the women on this call who are going on our Camino trip, we're only doing the last stage, so it's really 2 days of 12-mile walks. Um, I am curious, how do you recommend they recover in the evenings? Like, what are you when they're done walking for the day, are there any tips
Yeah.
that can help you recover faster?
Sure, yeah. You can we brought a little rolly thing to like roll our feet on and like a little self-massage roller. And that was lovely. You don't have to get a fancy one. You can use your water bottle. Sometimes if you do have a lot of swelling, a cold water bottle, which I know might could be a challenge. Ice is sometimes a challenge in Europe more so than in the US, but filling up a water bottle with ice and rolling it against your foot can feel really good. Sticking your feet in the pool, if you have a pool option, feels really good. Elevating your feet to allow the blood to kind of come back through the body, encourage the circulation. Compression socks can be really helpful for recovery for some people. I actually wear and recommend compression socks on long flights anyway. So if you do that, then you'll already have a pair of compression socks. You can also wear compression socks during the hike. I suggest that you practice with them first, which is a piece of advice that I didn't follow myself before I did it. It worked out okay, but and now I do it more frequently. But at the time, I was like, oh, I wonder, on day like 8 or 9 of the Camino, I was like, maybe I should try hiking with my compression socks. And again, it worked out well, but I usually recommend people try it first at home before they do it on the trail. Um, so yeah, those are a few things. Hydration is huge. I cannot even emphasize enough, especially if it's hot. Obviously, Jean, that's another thing for Morocco is getting plenty of hydration. Yes, you might have to like go to the bathroom more often, but it really does help your body regulate your system and potentially also having some electrolytes. So, there's a huge variety of electrolytes these days. It used to be just like Gatorade was the thing, but there is a lot of different electrolyte formulations and options these days. And again, that's something I recommend practicing with at home to find one that you like. Yeah, I mean, I could list probably 6 or 7 if you'd like me to, but that's a very much a personal preference thing.
Yeah.
So go to your grocery store. Chances are they have at least 3 or 4. If you go to some place like REI or a running store or a place like that, they may have some additional ones. And just try them. You can order stuff online. Yeah, there's just lots of options for that. So hydration can really help with recovery, and eating enough both while you're walking and having breakfast, having it's fuel. Having food on board before you start your walk is just going to make it so much easier. I know there are some people who have a hard time eating in the morning. I am not one of those people. I am like ready to like have breakfast as soon as I get up, but at least have some food in your system because it's going to affect your energy levels. It is like gas in your car. Like you want your tank to have some fuel in it. Um, Eating snacks throughout the day, every 1 to 2 hours, having lunch. This is also something good to do with your practice walks or hikes, is like, especially for the Camino, because you probably will be stopping for a meal, I imagine, midday.
Yep.
It can be hard to like sit down and have a meal and then go walk another 6, 7 miles. So practice it, you know, go. I mean, my husband and I, we walked into town and had lunch and walked home, and we live like 6 miles from town. So it was perfect. But just kind of getting your gut ready for that can
Yeah.
be helpful as well.
Awesome. Well, I have found this super, super helpful. I hope other people have as well and learned some new tips and ways to prepare for upcoming travels. Um, if anyone has final questions, feel free to speak up or put them in the chat. But otherwise, I really enjoyed spending this time with you, Becky. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all for joining us as well on your Saturday. We will send follow-ups with the recording of this and introductions to Becky as well. If you are interested in working with her in a more one-on-one capacity for some coaching for a specific trip that you have coming up, I will include that in my follow-up email with how to get in touch with her and learn more about her specific coaching services. So thank you again,
Yeah.
everybody. And we hope that you have great rests of your Saturdays.
Yeah, Catherine, let me just mention too, I do offer a 30-minute free consultation. If you just want to chat and like, whether you're interested in potentially pursuing training or you just want to have some one-on-one time for questions and ask if, some people just ask me, hey, this is what I'm doing. Is that going to be enough? What are some tips? I'm happy to, I love talking about traveling. I love talking about training and all the things. So I will include that link to book a time with me in that follow-up email, I think too, right, Catherine?
Yeah, exactly. We'll have the link to book time with her and then, definitely take advantage of the 30 minutes. And I think you will find Becky to be a wealth of resources as you think about upcoming travel. And if you have questions about women travel abroad, you can reach out to us on our website or to me directly, Catherine at Women Travel Abroad. And I'm always happy to talk about upcoming trips and ways that you might want to travel with us. So thanks again for the time, everybody, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.